So the ancient Egyptian history, specifically the 18th dynasty of Egypt, that's the dynasty that holds the history of the Shona people. Because one thing that I've always questioned is that we have so much oral tradition, we have so much detail about our history and our ancestors and the forefathers of the country or the tribes or whatever it is that you would like to label it as. But what I've come to realize is that the history that's depicted in the 18th dynasty of Egypt is the very same history that the Shona continue to share through word of mouth. Now, the last empire that was, or the last descendants, or the last case of the ancient Egyptian dynasty descendants is was found with when we look at the Munhumutapa Empire. One thing that I take note of is the language, is how things are spelt and how they were spelt before, or the other names for it. Munhumutapa, Munhumutapa, Munhumutapa. So when we say Munhumutapa, we're saying that Amenhotep. I've covered that in previous videos, that when we say Munhumutapa, Ishe or Mangwende Munhumutapa, we're referring to a royal person who's a descendant of the bloodline of Amun. Amun is the Egyptian deity who's known as, in Shona we call it Nyamunu or Munu. Amun means Munu. Mwanawa Amun, mwanawe Zua, mwanawa Munu, mwanawa Nyamunu. So when we look at the word Amenhotep or Imhotep, like I said, that's Munhumutapa, wana we Munu, and it or wana wa Msikawanu, or those of the bloodlines of the Msikawanu. So look at the story of Mambire. Mambire was known to be the son of Tovera, who's also regarded as the ancient forefather of the Shona, who brought the Shona from the Egyptian captivity all the way to the promised land, which is Ophir, or the land of Punt, Southern Africa. And is that if you go back to ancient Egypt, there's this very same depiction of Mambire. Like I said, Mambire, who's Murenga's father, who's also Tovera's son. Mambire is shown in that popular Egyptian, I'll put it here, in the very same description as we have when we look at the oral tradition. For example, he wore loin cloths, like cotton cloths, waist down. So as you can see, even in the picture itself, you can clearly see the description that we have through oral history sort of matches the famous picture of this king or this pharaoh Mambire as slaying a lion, and his son, whose name is Murenga. Murenga is who we, the Shona, say Murenga is the god of war. Isn't that interesting that even if you go to Egypt or the past civilization, there are different gods who are actual people at some point. The god of war, Chimurenga, the god of beauty, the god of love, the god of peace. So, if we also read the stories of Akhenaten marrying his apparently half-sister, or that incest type of stories, they match the stories that we have about Nehanda being a daughter of a product of incest, or her and her brother Nebedza having a child together. So the stories are very parallel. So what does that mean? So what that means is that the descendants of these bloodlines, or the descendants of these royal families, or these Egyptians, they exist within this country. Personally, I can speak for my own bloodline, the Phoenicians, who came here 2000 BC or even way before. I can speak for the ancient Egyptian, which is Munhumutapa. So now I see that Zimbabwe is seeking a spiritual solution, looking for whatever. So why aren't you looking for the descendants of Murenga, the descendants of Nehanda? Why aren't you looking for these descendants? I can tell you part of the reason. There was a massacre that happened towards the families of these people, the descendants of these people, not only by the people of vanhu vana vevhu vacho zvakaitwawo maportuguese mabritish. That's the one that at a soul level, those are the massacres that I really remember. And then even anhu atema chaivo they went out and started slaying these sages, or what we call spirit mediums, because of who they were. This story has been ongoing for years, thousands of years. They called it Lumerians versus Atlanteans, lion cult versus snake cult. Like I said, the lion cult ndoyana Nehanda and Mazwana. So if you look at when we summon Nehanda, when we talk about Nehanda in this country, we're literally referring to the daughter of Akhenaten, of the 18th dynasty of Egypt, Amen Munhumutapa number 4, who changed his name to Akhenaten. That's the person in our culture that we call Mutuota. Even if you go to Egyptian history itself, if you look up that person named Akhenaten and you search up his mother's name, you find what it is. His mother's name is Mutemwea, Mutimwea, Mutunoyera, Muti. So before I digress, if you look at there's a person named Dr. Carl Peters who was very much convinced that Ophir, the biblical Ophir that we're looking for, is in the southern part of Zambezi, where we also find the Solomon's mines. So when he was doing his excavations here, he found,